Viewers, and welcome to the channel. My name is Shannon Rivkin. Video this week with BHP and Andrew Forrest fighting over a prospective nickel miner in Canada. What does this mean for the resources sector? I thought this was an appropriate video to do following on from last week, so very related. I've actually got the exact same image in here that I'll get to in a moment. But you know, for anyone who's been following it, and almost ashamed that it's Canada listed, because it's a really good takeover situation, which, you know, certainly for a very similar jurisdiction to Australia would have been a nice opportunity for us here. But anyway, haven't been able to do that. This Noront Resources. So Noront is in a region in Canada which is a little bit isolated, and why it's an exciting nickel province, but one that has always kind of been on the kind of the watch list of the big miners out there, but never been one that they've ultimately gone ahead and tried to get exposure to, because no infrastructure whatsoever and really expensive to develop and get this product to market. Anyway, we're now looking down the barrel of a very different future where you know, metals and commodities that will have a use in this clean energy future and in lithium-ion batteries are now the flavour of the month, as demand is expected to increase dramatically over the next decade or so. You know, I'm one of those who probably continually believe that expectations of the analyst community is probably going to fall short, and I think demand for electric vehicles and electrification in general is going to be even ahead of most analyst expectations. So, you know, it's not a huge surprise to see both BHP, which is a company, at least in my view, pretty clearly looking at a very different future for themselves in an ESG-focused world, where they're now trying to get rid of their oil and gas assets, already trying to get out of its thermal coal assets, moving into things like potash and its clean implications, and obviously nickel, which is, you know, already the biggest nickel producer in Australia, but obviously trying to make nickel a bigger part of its overall portfolio, and obviously they need to have a very strong view of the nickel price outlook to warrant moving into a company like Noront, which is not, you know. And I think this is why, you know, you've seen these sort of increases to the price. It's not about Noront whatsoever, but it's about getting a foothold in this region, because you're going to have to obviously both develop this, explore in the region, and obviously then spend on the infrastructure to get this product to market. And that's something like BHP can do. But it's obviously also gaining the attention of someone like Andrew Forrest, who's made his intent on becoming a clean powerhouse in the future pretty clear, spending 10% of Fortescue's profits on green hydrogen, but certainly on his in his own personal family trust, doing the exact same thing with an attempted acquisition of something like Noront. You know, and this follows on from what we talked about last week, the expected demand versus production versus you know, policies scenario, and a net zero by 2050 scenario of where we're going to be. So, you know, the difference between where we are on stated policies and a net zero by 2050 is a pretty significant difference. Demand for all of these, and particularly nickel, I should say, you know, we're talking about quadrupling expected demand over the next 30 years or so, you know, 29 years. And of course, you know, how is that going to be met? Where's that supply going to come from? And BHP is obviously trying to at least trying to get a foothold into this. You know, here we've got the chart of BHP Independence Group, which is nickel and lithium exposure, Orocobre, which is lithium, and Oz Minerals, which is copper, which is certainly a commodity that I'm pretty excited about over the next 10 years or so. Partly because of the supply outlook for copper as much as the demand outlook, but you can see that, you know, BHP probably the biggest underperformer here, partly because it's still kind of got that outsized exposure to, you know, old world, I guess, dirty commodities such as iron ore and oil and gas, but of course we're starting to see the real outperformance of these clean commodities, and I think the reality is that if that demand outlook that I've shown previously continues, you're going to start to see, I think, that outperformance continue. And the question is whether a company like BHP can reinvent itself quickly enough, can diversify quickly enough to get exposure to to these very exciting mega trends, and whether then it can join in on some of that rally in the share price. Anyway, that is it for this week's video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will be back next week with another video.